What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Now, for the next couple of days, I want to start getting back into the record prediction series and just starting to finish it off. And at the end, we can do a full recap talking about the overall record, the offensive players of the year, the defensive players of the year, the rookies, and stuff like that. But the reason I'm doing this now is because I will not be here for this coming weekend, so I'm pre-recording most of these videos so that they can come out daily for you guys. But obviously, if I'm not here, I can't record videos for you guys, so that's why I'm doing these today. I just figured they would be easy, kind of quick videos to make, and it still finishes off a nice series that we've been doing. It kind of wraps everything up, and then on Monday we can start getting into something a little bit newer. Now, with that being said, if you are new to the Detroit, or if you are new to my channel, consider liking the videos and subscribe to the channel. Doing that helps push the channel out and bring new people in. If you could take 2 seconds out of your day to do that, that would make my day, and I would be very, very appreciative to everybody that considers doing that. But with that being said, let's hop right into looking at our Week 14 matchup versus the Green Bay Packers. Now, if you have not seen the Week 2 matchup video when we played the Green Bay Packers at Lambeau Field, I have the Detroit Lions defeating the Green Bay Packers at Lambeau. If you want to see the reasonings, if you want to see stuff like that, obviously go back and watch that video. But it is not necessary for you to watch this video and understand what is going on. So the Detroit Lions, in my predictions, are currently 8-4. They are at the top of the NFC North, and they welcome the Green Bay Packers into Ford Field for a clash. Now, last year when we played the Green Bay Packers at Ford Field, we lost by a score of 23-20 on a last-second field goal by Mason Crosby. The Detroit Lions once again led this game for all 60 minutes, and the Green Bay Packers, were able to drive down the field and kick a last-second field goal to take the victory and remain the second seed in the NFC and get a bye week going into the playoffs. Now, with that being said, the game was very close, but the Detroit Lions had a lot of key starters missing that game, and including Matthew Stafford, Marvin Jones, Ricky Wagner, and Deshaun Hand. So 4 starters, 3 very quality starters, and Ricky Wagner, who, while I wasn't a huge fan of him, was still a starting offensive lineman, was still not the worst player on the team. So he, 4 starters, 3 really quality guys that I think would have changed the game. But those guys were not injured, or those guys were not playing. They were on injured reserve, and the team had to play without them. Now, looking at the key additions, we've gone over this in Week 2, so I'm going to go over it really quickly just to kind of refresh you guys because it's been a couple weeks. Now, for the Detroit Lions, they brought in Jeffrey Okudah, Desmond Trufant, Julian Okwara, and Danny Shelton. The Green Bay Packers brought in Christian Kirksey, Ricky Wagner, and Devin Funchess. The Detroit Lions lost Darius Slay, A'Shawn Robinson, Damon Snacks Harrison, and Devon Kennard, while the Green Bay Packers lost Blake Martinez, Brian Bulaga, and Jimmy Graham. Just as we did with the Bears video, I didn't want to do the same thing over from, the first video and just have it be a huge repetition. So I brought in a couple different things today. Now, just as the Bears video, I went over the record. I went over our home record against the Green Bay Packers since 2010. The Detroit Lions are currently 5-5 since 2010 against the Green Bay Packers in Ford Field. However, as I said, we probably should have won the one last year, and every single game at Ford Field is a very close one and always a very competitive one between us and the Packers. Now, I don't know how you guys feel about the Green Bay Packers, but personally, I thought they were very overrated last year. And when I list off these stats, just take a look and really try to think, does this sound like a playoff team? Does this sound like a team that should be one game away from the Super Bowl? Now, as far as the Packers defense, the rushing defense gave up 1,921 yards, which was 23rd in the NFL. They gave up 15 rushing touchdowns, which was 22nd, and they gave up 4.7 yards a carry, which was ranked 25th in the NFL. Now, their pass defense, they gave up 3,721 yards, which ranked 14th, so just above average, 19 passing touchdowns, which ranked 6th, which was very good, and they had 17 interceptions, which was 3rd. So their passing defense, as far as touchdowns allowed and interceptions, was very good, but their yards allowed was a little bit below average. Now, the Packers offense, as far as passing offense, they passed for 3,733 yards, which ranked 17th, 26 touchdowns, which ranked 14th, and the Aaron Rodgers only threw 4 interceptions, which was the least in the NFL. So, kind of around average, kind of a little bit below average in passing yards, just about average in rushing or in passing touchdowns. And then obviously Aaron Rodgers, being a very good quarterback, did not turn the ball over a lot, which is a key factor to success in the NFL. Now, the Green Bay Packers rushing offense, they rushed for 1,795 yards last year, which ranked 15th, 18 rushing touchdowns, which ranked 9th, averaging 4.4 yards a carry, which ranked 13th. I mean, none of those stats are really top 5 outside of interception. I mean, the Green Bay Packers really, for being a 13-3 team, they really weren't blowing people out. They really weren't dominating statistical categories. They really weren't doing anything crazy, blowing anybody out of the water, blowing out anybody, in any given Sunday. They just weren't that good. They just found a way to win football games every Sunday, which is obviously a good trait to have if you can win football games, if you can go 13-3, if you can make it to the conference championship. Obviously, that's a very good team. But the stats really don't back up the fact that the Packers were an elite team last year, which is why I think the Packers were kind of overrated. I think they had, not the most difficult schedule in the world, and full credit to them, they took advantage of it. But I don't think they're going to be that good next year. I think that they will be pushing for playoffs. I think they will be around 500. I don't think they'll have a 13-3 year like they did last year. I think they'll probably be around 8-8 to I think their ceiling is 10-6. I really don't think that they were that good of a team, and I think that they will take a huge step back next year. With that being said, and in this matchup, I think the Detroit Lions need to run the ball. As I said, as we looked at the Green Bay Packers rushing defense really wasn't that good last year, only ranking 23rd in rushing yards allowed and 22nd in touchdowns, while giving up the 25th most yards per carry in the NFL. And with the Detroit Lions adding DeAndre Swift and Jonah Jackson and Logan Stenberg and putting all this capital into the offensive line and into the running game, they need to be able to run the ball very well. And if they can't run the ball against Green Bay, they're not going to be able to run the ball against really anybody else on our schedule. So I think that that's going to be the game plan coming out. I think the Detroit Lions are going to need to run the ball very effectively because honestly, the Green Bay Packers defense isn't that good. And I know it was new last year, and I think being new is kind of a reason that they were a lot better. I think this year now teams have a full offseason to prepare for that defense. And while I still think the Smith brothers are a very good pass rushing duo, I think that just like Khalil Mack in his second year are going to take a huge step back. They're not going to be necessarily the dominant force that we saw last year because people are going to have more time to prepare. People are going to know what to look for. People are going to know how to counter it now. And, you're never going to be as effective the second time. In the NFL, you're only going to have one first impression. And last year with the Packers, that was obviously a very good first impression for their pass rush, for their free agent class. But now people know what to expect. Now people know how to prepare. And I think that pass rush, while still being a solid one, is going to take a huge step back from what we saw in the 2019 season. On the flip side of that, I think that, we have to contain Aaron Rodgers. If the Detroit Lions want a chance at winning this game, or if they ever want a chance at beating the Packers, they got to contain number 12 Aaron Rodgers. Why I don't necessarily think that Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback that he used to be. He's not the guy that's going to throw for 4,000, 5,000 yards. He's not going to throw for 40 touchdowns anymore because he doesn't have to be. I think the Green Bay Packers are also trying to transition to that 49ers style rebuild. I think they're trying to run the ball more, drafting A.J. Dillon in the second round, drafting a tight end that they're going to move to fullback in the third round, drafting a few offensive linemen late in the draft. I really think that they're trying to build up that offensive line. They're really trying to be like the 49ers where they hold the possession, they hold the ball the whole time. They wear out your defense, they make them tired, they hit them in the mouth, and that's kind of what the league is transitioning back to. Obviously, it used to be like that. Then it kind of transitioned to the air raid, the high-flying, fast-paced, high-scoring offenses. And now certain teams are trying to transition back to that run-first, ball control, time of possession kind of football team. And that's what the Detroit Lions are trying to do. And it kind of seems like that's what the Green Bay Packers are trying to do. However, the Detroit Lions defense should be much, much better next year. They should not be giving up too many points. They should not be giving up too much on the ground because they really weren't that bad last year. Now, with that being said, obviously, this is a divisional rival. Obviously, this is a divisional matchup late in the season where playoff implications could be on the line for both teams. So we really don't know what's going to happen. Obviously, division matchups are always tough because you always want to beat your rivals. You always want to show up with every single player on the roster for both sides wants to show up with their A game, wants to play the best game of their career to beat the division rivals, to not only put them up a spot, but to put their division rivals back a spot. So we don't really know what's going to happen. Division matchups are always tough to predict because they're always closer than they should be. They always seem to be a lot more competitive than they otherwise would be. So obviously, this whole series is a prediction, but division matchups are especially tough to predict. However, I believe the Detroit Lions were the better team last year. I think they had more upgrades this year. I think they added better pieces. I think they added better veteran pieces that are going to help them win football games. And I don't feel like the Packers had that good of a free agent class or a draft class that, they can even really contend with the Lions anymore. I really just feel like they were really close last year. I feel like Matt Patricia kind of out coached Matt LaFleur last year. Obviously, some unfortunate penalties went the Packers' way in the game at Lambeau, and then the Detroit Lions had a lot of injury concerns going into that Week 17 matchup. They really had nothing to play for, and they really still almost upset the Packers at that point and almost played spoiler. Unfortunately, with the injuries of the quarterback position, a lot on the defensive side, they weren't quite able to pull it out, but they were still competitive. I think with a healthy Matthew Stafford, a great run game, a much improved defense, I think that the Detroit Lions are going to I think they're going to sweep the Packers this year, just as they sweep the Chicago Bears. And, I think that at this point, we're 4-1 in the division. We got one more division game left against the Minnesota Vikings. So the Detroit Lions are looking very strong and looking at like a very solid playoff team at 9-4. So that is my prediction for the Green Bay Packers game. That is what I think is going to happen. Obviously, as I said, division rivals are tough to predict because they always want to beat their rivals no matter if you have something to play for or not. And the Packers historically have beaten the Lions more times than the Lions have beaten the Packers. But I really think the Detroit Lions had took too many steps forward this year, and the Packers took not enough. And I really think the Detroit Lions really surpassed the Packers in this offseason. So that's why I think they will sweep them. However, that is just a prediction, but that is all I have for you guys right now. If there is Lions news before tomorrow, I will obviously make a video letting every single person know. But until then, that is all I have for you guys today. Have an absolutely fantastic day. Thank you all so very much for watching, and I will see all of you in tomorrow's video. Thank you all for watching.